are a bunch of traffic calming and neighborhood safety improvements to encourage walking and biking in the neighborhood. This 6 p.m. meeting is going to focus on the Horn Pond Brook side. There'll then be a meeting at 7:30 to talk about the Pond Street side. You probably heard just a moment ago, this meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on the town's project website under winchester.us on the Lynch School project, Lynch School Traffic Improvement Project page. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Erica Guidaboni and Dan McCormick from Tool Design to start our updates. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. So I think this is the third time being here and I recognize some of the names, so hopefully none of these things are particularly new to you all. We're here tonight just to provide a project update and kind of let you know where things stand and where we're headed on this project. And I'll kind of walk through them at a quicker pace than I have been before and a little bit more about schedule. So just give me a moment to share my screen. All right, you should be able to see that. Nodding heads, yeah. Excellent. All right, welcome everybody. I'm just going to jump right in. So the star is where we are today. Last time, in the red, we were here in the October of 2023 doing the neighborhood outreach. I'm not going to read through all of these, but as you can see, it's been a long process, really well thought out over the course of, we're coming up on a couple of years on this project. And I'm really excited to update you all today about the engineering design that has taken place over the winter since we last spoke to you in October. I will, aside from tonight, Matt provided the information about the website for you to learn more information. I will be attending the select board meeting on March 11th as well to provide updates to the select board. And then we'll be, finalizing our design, moving towards town meeting in April of 2024. And if it is approved for funding, construction will take place in summer 2024 through the next year with the, pausing over the winter with the intention to be open before the new Lynch School opens in the fall of 2025 for the school year. Some quick updates since last fall. We did some, permitting. We've been to the Conservation Commission, working with the team there, doing our environmental due diligence to ensure we're not impacting anything. There is a floodplain, specifically on the Horn Pond Brook side, which many of you are probably familiar about, right along the water. So ensuring we're not being detrimental to the environment there with any impacts around construction and engineering. We attended a meeting in February and we are providing some, responding to some comments and updates there and attending the following, we also did a site walk a week ago as well with the Conservation Commission. And then we will be attending the March 12th Conservation Commission meeting as well in hopes of approvals there and resolution. We've closely been coordinating with the fire chief. As you can see on the screen there, it was kind of a fun day of laying out the curb extensions with temporary materials to ensure that their trucks and response time is not impacted by any of the work that we're doing. So this is on Pond Street, just kind of testing out some of those movements. We did, adjust our design slightly to ensure that the fire chief and first responders were satisfied with that work, and DPW and engineering were there as well. We've also had multiple rounds of comment and review from the engineering and public works departments in town to ensure the design meets the needs of the town as well. I'm just going to linger on this really quickly. I've shown this slide a million times just to orient us all. This is the Lynch district and kind of where all the different nuanced 12 individual projects, we're calling them, kind of fall around the Lynch School, with the intention of improving, access for people on foot to the Lynch. So these are the designs. I'm going to start with Royal Street at Horn Pond Brook Road, and then on the other end of Royal Street is Sylvester Ave. Not a lot has changed on these designs. I will say that you'll see that I'm coming to you today with engineered plans. These are the pavement marking and signage plans. To kind of demonstrate to you the progress that has happened since last time. Last time I came with kind of conceptual drawings on an aerial, And now we're at a place where we've got, the survey laid out underneath, and we are, actually engineering these things to ensure that they fit, that there's no utility conflicts, drainage, grading, ensuring we're not impacting anyone's driveway access, tying into existing sidewalks, all those things that come into play here. So the tan sort of represents, sidewalk material, concrete. The gray is, pavement, and the little bit of green that you see is additional new green space. So nothing particularly to note here. This is a raised intersection, if you don't recall from last time, and this is mostly curb extensions and providing a speed hump on Sylvester Ave to slow vehicles in advance of that crosswalk. Moving down Sylvester Avenue onto Middlesex Street and Horn Pond Brook Road. The one on the left here with the two intersections on it. That one is, I'll note that those were both crossing Horn Pond Brook Road and Canal Street. We had raised crosswalks. They are now flush with the road and just going to be curb extensions instead with speed humps. Ultimately, through design process and assessment of the survey, we found that it would be extremely expensive, honestly, to build a crosswalk there, and also some detriments to the environmental permitting aspects of changing the floodplain storage. So what we're hoping to do here is still achieve increased visibility of the crosswalks, shortening the length of the crosswalks, and then slowing vehicles down with those the speed hump series that we were talking about there. So improving the sidewalk on the side of Middlesex Street, as well, as you can see there, ensuring we're maintaining any driveway aprons that are there today. There is a small gap in the sidewalk right where Canal Street hits Middlesex Street, where the kind of dirt area is. There's like a dirt parking lot that goes towards the cemetery. We're going to be kind of improving that sidewalk and providing a little apron there. Moving over to Middlesex at Horn Pond Brook Road with a kind of large green area. That's a larger curb extension. Our intentions there are to provide grass there. We did tighten this up a little bit. It was bigger at the last meeting. There were some concerns about ensuring that there was, access, enough of an access aisle at the Horn Pond Brook Road approach. So we're going to use some grass there and provide some trees as well, and ensure that we're communicating with the neighbors if anyone lives on that stretch. Otherwise, we're going to reach out directly and just make sure we're placing those trees where it makes most sense. And moving further down Middlesex Street towards Lake Street, a change here is the sidewalk on the park side of Middlesex Street, where there's no sidewalk today. The last plans, we had them right along the street curb edge, and we're moving them kind of to the sidewalk to sort of meander through the park behind the tree line, which we think will be a really nice kind of pleasant addition to that space. And then along Fairfield Place, maintaining that slight curb extension, providing new ramps that don't exist today, and a new sidewalk that's missing on Middlesex Street towards Lake Street. I wanted to take a moment to ensure that I don't think last time we had placed the speed humps directly. I wanted to walk through those with you today to make sure that everyone knows where and why we were placing the speed humps where we placed them. Woodside Road is a great example of what the speed humps will look like, and kind of what they'll feel like as well. They're not super dramatic. We're trying to strike a balance of actually slowing cars down, but also don't want it to be too dramatic that we're impacting emergency services, or anybody. I guess there are concerns that they can make some noise when they're at higher speeds or volumes. I think that Canal and Middlesex are really appropriate applications for these speed humps, but I think if anyone wants to go out there and kind of ride over these and make sure that they have experienced them before, that would be probably useful as information as well. So we place these to ensure that we're not interfering with any driveway access or any drainage. The grades on Canal Street, which I'll show you an image in a moment, are a little too steep, where they're not recommended. So we didn't place a few kind of towards Middlesex Street. Speed humps are spaced about 250 feet apart. You really don't want to space them any further apart, or they start to be ineffective and people speed up between them. Typically, they divert up to 20% of volume, which I think could be a great thing, given that I've heard comments about traffic diversion going through the neighborhood, and avoiding Main Street. So I think that could help a lot. And they typically reduce average speeds between 20 and 25%. So looking more closely at where we were talking about placing these, I put up some house numbers on the screen there. I'll linger here for a moment. And this will be on the website as well. We've got 3 speed humps on Middlesex Street towards the end. So there's some kind of right along the kind of straight piece of Middlesex Street, which we think is important. And then Canal Street, we've got 4 more, and those are the house numbers as well. And again, we had to avoid kind of between Farrow Street and Middlesex Street, as the grade of the road is not appropriate for this application. Next steps, I sort of covered it, but just a reminder, we're in final engineering at this point. So we're hopeful that we are aligning with the goals and the needs of the neighborhood through this plan. We are going to Springtown meeting in April. Construction will begin this summer through the bid process. And we will be coordinating with the school project to ensure that everything's completed before the school year when the school opens in fall of 2025. It's the end of my formal presentation.
Thanks, Erica. I realize there were some comments that came in during your presentation, and I kind of jumped the gun and started responding to them, but maybe I'll just, before I see a hand raised, but before we get to other folks, maybe I'll just say the comments that came in and what the responses were. One was just a interest in what the opportunities for public comment were from a resident. And I mentioned some of the methods that we outreach methods we took, including sending letters to the neighborhood, having the website and posting it up on the both of the town calendar for the meetings, but then a comment period. And she asked for some additional information, which I can provide offline. There was a question about basically traffic patterns in terms of specifically, will Royal Street be made one way during pickup and drop off? And I noted that the scope of this project is really a traffic calming and safety project, and it didn't really look at the overall traffic circulation in the neighborhood, and that, or any impacts of the school. There was a study for the school that was done. So we're not envisioning that at this point. However, the improvements that are being proposed wouldn't stop or preclude any changes to traffic patterns in the future if the neighborhood felt that was something they were interested in. And then there was a question about the funding. And my understanding is the funding was included in the original override, but because of kind of the way it was set up, it's going into the Capital Stabilization Fund. So this still needs to go to town meeting in order to have the funds actually appropriated to the project. I think that's all that came in the comments section here. So if you want, maybe you can handle some questions.
Great, thanks, Matt. Looks like Kay has had her hand up, so I'm going to ask you to unmute. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So just two quick things. One, regarding Royal, that was going to be one of my questions as well. That's actually something, I don't know when the meeting was. It was a few meetings ago. I want to say about a year ago now that was discussed, and there was a lot of interest from the neighborhood to make that a one-way. So I'm curious why that's not being contemplated at this time. So that's one of the items. So I can stop there and let you respond to that. And I do have one more.
So why don't I take that one? And just bear with me because I've been here with the town for not quite a year. So some of this does predate me. But my understanding in talking to the town manager, who was the former town engineer, is that there were previous proposals to look at circulation such as Royal Street, and that the overall sense was that, not favorable. And at the time that it was, the town decided not to go with that. That doesn't stop the neighborhood if they feel that very strongly that Royal Street should be made a one-way. That's something that they could petition the town to do. As I kind of mentioned in the notes, this project is looking at traffic calming and safety improvements and not necessarily circulation. So it really wasn't included in the scope of this project, but it's certainly something that could be considered if the neighborhood was interested in it. And I can give you some more information offline on what that process looks like. You may have to have Kay speak again for her second
Okay, yes,
question.
thank you. I was able to unmute myself. Okay, that's helpful to know. I would say that on Royal Street in particular, it is a safety issue. And we can take that offline, but I do think that should be put on the table as a safety issue. It's not necessarily a flow issue. I think that was brought up by the neighbors as a safety issue for the school, as it's so close to the school. So I think that's something that at least I would like to see put back on the table. I'm not sure about the rest of the neighborhood, but I do know there was favorability around that at the last call. So that was one thing that I would like to have at least discussed at the next meeting. And the next is Linden Street. That was also something that we had discussed. This is the road that is by the public works that a lot of children use not only to get to Lynch, but also to get to the middle and high school. It's very dangerous. Fairfield Place doesn't have sidewalks, which is the street that cuts between Middlesex and Linden. And that also, cars tend to flow around the corner there pretty quickly, and students and folks are just walking in the middle of the road. And then again, the Linden Street sidewalks are in really bad shape. They're unwalkable, really, especially in the winter, because they're just in such rough shape. So that was something that we had discussed. And due to the muting issue, I'm just gonna kind of go through my laundry list, and then we can chat about them individually. Horn Pond Brook Road. We'd also discussed the sidewalk because there isn't a real sidewalk. It's kind of an asphalt area that gets flooded with mud, and oftentimes the kids end up walking in the road and aren't able to use the sidewalk. That's a clear safety issue. And then the last issue I'm curious about is, people use the bike path to commute. And I'm curious, with the new traffic pattern that's going to be coming off of the bike path onto Middlesex Street, it looks like there's a pretty sharp turn around the corner. Cars tend to fly down Middlesex Street. I'm concerned that we're not going to have an adequate way to slow cars down when people are merging, whether that's bikes, children bike to school on that path, people walk to school, and I just want to make sure that's contemplated as well. So just to summarize the issues, one is the Royal Street, the other is the Fairfield and Linden, the third is the Horn Pond Brook Road sidewalk, and the fourth is the bike path.
So I'll try and answer some of that, but I'm probably gonna have to leave there, just as she's more familiar with the history of the project. I know we met with DPW back last fall. Maybe I can't remember if it was before or after the October meeting, and they said that they would take on the Linden Street sidewalk. So, unclear whether we will include it in this contract or not, but that will get done. I'm not familiar with any discussion of extending the sidewalk on Fairfield Street. That I don't know if you're familiar with that, Erica. Did not see that in any of our background documents.
No, not at this time.
Okay. With regards to Horn Pond Brook, similarly, I don't believe that any redoing of any sidewalks on Horn Pond Brook Road are included in this project, and I did not see that in any of the backgrounds. Erica, does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, came up once early, and I don't want to speak out of turn for DPW, but I feel like he at least acknowledged it, so we could certainly bring it back to DPW and see
Okay.
what can be done there. It is already existing, so it'd be a matter of just repairing it essentially.
Repairing it, yeah. So that's something that we can follow up with DPW on. And then finally, well, Erica, maybe you want to talk a little bit more about the design on Middlesex and how it relates with Horn Pond Brook Road, the other part where the bike path is.
Yeah, so, well, I'll just acknowledge too, I'm seeing in the chat that Kay's following up. Fairfield does not have a sidewalk, but neither does Middlesex at this time, so I'm hopeful that, we can get some of the movements to happen on Middlesex, now that it will not be a broken network anymore. So, let me just, should I pull up the plans for this other?
Sure.
Like this. Right, so, the concern is about safety from exiting this, is that what the concern was? Guess I didn't fully follow the comment, there was a long list there. Can I ask you to unmute again, Kay, just so I make sure that I understand your question on this part?
Yeah, the concern is about folks exiting the bike path with cars, and I don't have the picture in front of me, the kind of rendering that you had, but I can speak from right now. Cars tend to go very fast, and I've seen cars even, which I think this new design will help prevent, but cars think that turn to Horn Pond Brook is Canal, and they'll make a sharp right turn directly into oncoming bike traffic. I've seen that. I've also seen cars reverse into Horn Pond Brook to do a U-turn because they realize they're going the wrong way. And then I've also seen bikes kind of trying to follow the bike path and then cars not slowing down. And so there's basically a direct merge between bikes and cars. And there's no dedicated bike lane to get, because there's a bike path that's parallel to Middlesex. And then there's the bike path that is the path that takes you to Horn Pond past the Lynch School. And so that's a direct commuting line through Sylvester that folks use, and that there's that particular merge right where you're extending the curb that I'm concerned about, how bikes and walkers are going to be able to merge on without getting hit by cars. Because they're not going to be on the sidewalk. They're going to be on the road.
Yeah.
Erica, I can answer part of that question.
Sure, go ahead.
With regards to
Thank you,
the kind of the confusion, I remember that coming up the last meeting, the confusion of it being Canal Street, and we went out with DPW, and I think the pretty easy fix is to move the Horn Pond Brook Road sign, because I think it's kind of in a spot where no one can see it right now, or it's difficult to see. So we were gonna look at moving that to the other side of the street, so it'd be much more clear that it's not Canal Street. And I also had talked to them about working with a neighbor. I'm not sure if they've reached out or not. There's some pretty large hedges that are kind of overhanging the sidewalk. This is kind of on the south side of the intersection where kind of you have that tight turn, the tight
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That sidewalk's unusable, so we walk in the middle of the street.
Yeah, so we've been working with DPW on trying to address that. So between that and relocating the sign, and then, Erica can talk a little bit about how the intersection's being teed up and the speed humps on Middlesex, I do think that will improve it pretty significantly.
I mean, even something as simple as having like a biker stop sign. I'm just trying to think of ways where we can keep people safe. And whether that's changing something with the cars or maybe changing something with the bikers, that, they need to be aware that they're merging into a road, because it's not readily apparent. It's like the bike path ends, but then there's this like weird gap of an area where there's 2 or 3 homes that's really slow traffic. And it's not readily apparent that cars will be speeding by that you can't see on your left shoulder, because again, there's the corner, there's the hedges, etc. Maybe there's some way just to make sure that people stay safe in that particular spot.
Erica, we are adding a stop bar and a stop sign on Horn Pond at Middlesex, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a few things there, and it's hard to like picture how different this may end up looking, but I do think a lot of the things that you said, Kay, can hopefully be alleviated by this design, which, that U-turn thing, like there won't be that space to do that necessarily. The signage that Matt was mentioning, hopefully even this being kind of teed off and less of a kind of swooping design will slow cars down, improve visibility, make it clearer that this is, you know, a no outlet street.
We're still recording. Thank you, and thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. Oh, man. I feel like at the Academy Awards and the mic cut out or something, and it's like you got to deal with whatever just happened. I'm really sorry about that, guys. All right. Was that did you have any more questions, Marty, before
Yeah, just you had mentioned I thought I heard you mention trees being installed at the corner of Middlesex and Canal. Did I hear that right, or maybe I misunderstood?
I think we actually, I didn't bring that up. I was talking about the extension at Horn Pond Brook Road at Middlesex, so that larger area. But we are looking for opportunities to add additional trees. And one that we are investigating but have not been able to confirm yet to ensure that it doesn't impact sightlines is at that corner of Canal at Middlesex. I know that there's a little bit of a lack of shade at that corner. Was there a comment you wanted to provide for that?
Well, my house is at the corner of Middlesex and Canal, so I would be very interested to know if there's going to be a tree put in front of my house.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. Yeah. So I think we're at the final stages, so we're not quite at the landscape architecture design plan phase yet for this. That's kind of at the end, now that we know where those opportunities are. So any trees that we're going to be installing or kind of planting, we would be communicating directly with the abutters to just let them know that it's happening.
Okay, would there
Right.
be an opportunity to comment on that?
Well, I guess, yeah, I think if you feel very strongly one way or another, you should let us know now.
I appreciate that, and maybe this is an offline discussion. I guess it sort of depends on where and the size, and
Okay,
so
yeah,
it's sort of it's not really a sort of yes or no question at this point. It's
yeah,
I'd be interested to know, and it doesn't sound like there is a definitive answer, so that's why
Right.
I was asking the question, because
okay,
I thought I heard something about trees being installed, and now it sounds like that is least in consideration.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So I'd like to have a further discussion on that if that's when that decision is closer to being finalized.
yeah, and I'll, just for ease, I'm gonna put in the chat, our engineering department email address, and if you want to just send an email there, so we have your contact information, we can reach
Sure.
out to you offline on that.
You're right. All right, we're back at it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I guess I do want to give an opportunity to Kay to make sure that I answered your question. I'm really sorry that happened in the middle of me answering your questions. Let me share my screen again and just make sure that we feel like we've answered it. Oh, goodness. Oh. Sorry, I'm making people co-host again. The joys of Zoom. All right. So I think some of the things you were concerned about were safety here, and I do believe that with this extension and these speed humps specifically, those are all things that are intended to slow vehicles down. This is intended to improve visibility. Right now, we don't have a sidewalk that continues down Middlesex, so you're really asking people to just walk in the middle of the street here. This is going to shorten that crossing quite a bit, make it really clear where cars should be instead of cars being able to drive along the swath of pavement. We're kind of, consolidating them into one space that is logical. We looked at the sightlines. I know Matt was mentioning the shrubs before we got kicked out. So hopefully all of those things improve safety. That's our intention here. I know that bikes ride on the street. Actually, they're not on the plans yet, but we were talking about the sharrows that are on the street. So we're going to make sure that those are still there. We could talk about if we want to increase the visibility of those sharrows and put a green backing on them. That is something that the team has kind of been mulling over. So if people have thoughts about that, I welcome them today. The volumes and the speeds on the road are fairly low. So this is kind of what they call a bike boulevard, where it's fairly safe, or it is safe and fairly comfortable for bikes to ride in lane. We did talk about bike lanes on this street. That would require either roadway widening or removal of on-street parking. which I don't think were palatable at the time. So we leaned towards something that we feel is a safe condition, and with increasing the kind of tightness of the intersections and providing those speed humps, we feel that we're going to be sufficiently slowing vehicles down to make it a safer condition. Go ahead, Brooke, you're welcome to unmute.
Hi, I actually live on Horn Pond Brook Road, and for the life of me, I can't figure out how this is numbered. I don't know where my house is in relativity to the little island you guys are putting there. But I just want to make sure, are 2 cars able to fit down that street right there? Because right now, I mean, there is that big area and people bang U's in front of it all the time. But I just want to make sure that with our neighbors, if there's two-way traffic going, that we're able to access that.
I can, maybe Dan was able to pull that up on the plans while I'm starting the answer to the question, but you know, the street Horn Pond Brook Road, we're not widening, or we're not narrowing the width of the road as the road goes down. We're only narrowing it at the intersection, and it's quite a bit wider than the minimum. I think, you know, typically we can do 10-foot lanes. We usually do like 12 at the intersection. This is wider than that. We tried to make it fairly minimal because we heard comments last time that people were concerned about that. You have the
Okay.
dimension, Dan. I know I'm asking you to do CAD on the fly. We can move to next questions, and then if Dan has it, he can unmute himself and we can answer the actual dimension.
I just want to note,
Oh, go ahead, Beth.
Sorry, I just pulled it up. We are maintaining where that crosswalk is at the intersection of Middlesex and Horn Pond Brook Road. That crosswalk will be approximately 46 feet.
Yeah, that's pretty wide. So we were trying to strike a balance between the concerns that we heard and also making sure that we're making this comfortable for pedestrians. So that's a very comfortable, as I said, travel lanes can be down to, you know, Winchester has a ordinance for 10-foot marked lanes, which is kind of along the street and not at intersections, but that provides plenty of space. Go ahead, Matt, did you want to add?
I was just gonna say, Kay had another question she put into the chat, which was, did we contemplate a crosswalk from the bike path to the other side of Middlesex Cemetery side? So I assume this is at Horn Pond Brook Road.
I mean, I think what our intentions are is that for a person walking, they would utilize the sidewalks and come to the crossing that we've provided at Middlesex Street at Canal. And if you're on a bike, you're
Okay.
riding in lane. And as
Looks like
Matt mentioned, we
Brooke-
can get these on the website too. So if you had any issues orienting yourself, or if you want to email the engineering department address, we're more than happy to answer more detailed questions and walk you through the plans.
It looks like Brooke still has her hand up. I'm not sure if it's
Oh, sure.
Hi.
another question.
Sorry, I meant to ask a follow-up question. So I bought the house in October 2022, and one of the biggest reasons I bought the house was it's a south-facing house, so you get a ton of sun all day through the front of the house. So I'm just a little concerned that when you guys put trees up, it's going to block a lot of that natural sunlight from coming in. So I'm wondering, are the neighbors along that street going to get a say in what kind of trees are going up and how tall?
I don't want to answer that explicitly for Matt, but I will say that we are intending to talk to you directly and make sure we're not placing the trees in a place that you don't want them to be.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, I would ask it if you could also email us. That would be most helpful. Then we have your contact information, and there's certainly lots of different types of trees, spacing, heights. So that's something we could certainly talk about further.
Absolutely. And you put your email in the chat, right? I think I
It
saw it.
should be in the chat, engineering department, DEPT.
And hearing your concern around shade, I can speak with my landscape architects on the team and come up with, you know, I can at least ask her about, you know, canopy and things like that to minimize shade casting under your home.
Okay. And then sorry, one last thing. I know now, we basically all the neighbors kind of maintain that little green area that's in front of our house. So I am a little concerned that I see like a little jet out. I think it might be in front of my house on the Horn Pond Brook Road island. I just want to make sure the town's going to maintain this little area, right? Because I don't want to have to deal with having to mow it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, currently, other projects that we've done throughout town, the town has not maintained the grass or green area that's been added. And I'm not sure that the town would be able to keep it up to the standards that an abutter might want.
Yeah, so I think this is an area where I'm glad you're here because I did want to communicate directly with some abutters that have specific things going on kind of right in front of their home. So I think this can be a conversation still. As I said, the landscape architecture plans are still in play. So if grass isn't the solution, we can talk about other materials as well. So definitely send an email and we're happy to work this out directly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. So I'd like to thank Erica and Dan and all of you for attending and having patience with us as we had these technical difficulties. We'll get the slides up probably tomorrow. It may take a day or two to get the recording back up. In the meantime, if you have any other questions, you can use that email address to get in touch with us. Thanks.
So much.